Hello and welcome back to Turntable 20s with me, your host, Sam Moorhouse. And today our guest, Femi Adewumi, who is the Programs Director at MEST. Femi, how are you today? And could you get started by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hi Sam, I'm good and thank you for having me on the podcast. My name is Olufemi Adewumi, as you've said. I work with MEST as Programs Director. That means I manage program operations, all the programs that are donor funded at MEST. I've been at MEST since 2019, so that's about 6 years now. I have a background in IT, infrastructure, and operations, working in the telco sector as well as in finance. Also working for a long time in IBM. I think I have two MBA degrees. Yeah, I think that's basically all.
Don't gloss over those degrees, man. That's a big shift and quite a wide-ranging technology career, right? From telcos and IBM all the way through to working at this kind of innovation hub right slap bang in the center of West Africa. Keen to hear about that. But as part of your career and your growth, you've seen the balance of kind of the old world mindset, quote unquote legacy thinking, with kind of new, vibrant, innovative way of thinking of building out companies and building out software. What's for you the biggest frustration in terms of like the legacy mindset? What's the thing that slows and frustrates progress the most?
So I have worked in a telco, and what we call a fintech, what we call fintech now, but back then the word fintech didn't exist. And they were all like breakthrough experiences in my environment at the time in Nigeria. And I think probably the biggest challenge to in terms of legacy thinking in the telco sector as well as in even the fintech company I worked in was regulatory, actually, government on the one hand, and the customer culture. I remember back then, I worked with a company called Value Card, which was um, uh, a consortium of banks coming together to put together an electronic wallet or a card that you could use POSs at merchants to. And the biggest challenge we had then was that the merchants were too much comfortable with cash, you know.
Yeah.
And we felt they would never agree to let go of cash. I mean, this was 1998 in Nigeria. Fast forward, lots of things have happened. Massive changes. Momo has come in. The banking financial sector has been massively deregulated in Nigeria. So yes, that mindset there is there. People have like things that they're comfortable with. The culture accepts. I mean, Nigeria, we have this culture of spraying cash at parties. You can't spray virtual money. So yeah, there are those things that are there, and it's been a long challenge, especially in Nigeria, moving from the cash system, and now Nigeria is actually almost, I would say, 70% cashless.
This digital, right? Yeah.
You know,
But how do you overcome that mindset, or was it just a matter of waiting for people to catch up, for society to catch up, and for the technology to be there?
It's a bit of both. I mean, you can't just wait; nothing will happen. So a lot of education, awareness creation, um, sometimes shock management. In fact, what made Nigeria eventually shift, Ghana, Kenya were like way ahead of Nigeria in mobile money adoption. Nigeria eventually shifted when the government did something really drastic and changed the currency in the middle of an election. And
Correct.
the money was not available, so everybody had to just go cashless. So sometimes the shock treatment is what works. But yeah, lots of awareness creation, creating the infrastructure, enabling local players, private players to get involved, letting them see the benefits. So um, when the government created multiple financial player licenses in Nigeria that enabled fintechs to now become operational, there was a massive uptake to POS money transfers in Nigeria. You could walk down the street and see like five small POS vendors vending cash in Nigeria, taking cash from your card and then taking money from your card and then giving you cash. Um, so
That's a kind of innovation that's very peculiar to the region, right? That hustle culture, that street corner vendor. From the same thing in Ghana up to a few years ago with telco scratch cards.
yes, yeah.
And
And I actually saw that.
those guys weren't just doing that; they were performing all kinds of local vendor services.
Yeah, I saw that in Nigeria as well. Actually walked down, I was trying to see how much the transition to the GSM regime of Nigeria. I walked down a street counting the Richard Card voucher sellers. I think I counted like 20, back then, just one street. So yes, that hustle culture has helped uh, transition from technology in Nigeria. Once you enable that sector to participate.
Yeah, yeah. I guess that the technology had to be there in order to support the societal shift, right? It couldn't have happened at the same time. So there's kind of a leading edge of building out the platform, building the vendor space, building the relationships with street vendors and electronic vendors, and then kind of element of luck of the government performing this shock function and and then being able to onboard large numbers of people to your platform very, very quickly. It would have been a disaster if the platform couldn't support that migration.
Oh, it should have been terrible. But Nigeria had been ready infrastructure-wise for at least 20 years. The banks in Nigeria were the ones that facilitated the deregulation of the financial services sector and to bring up about like mobile money transactions. Ghana was like light years ahead of Nigeria. But once the government broke that monopoly of the banks in the sector and introduced the license regimes, things started picking.
And Ghana's now kind of re-regulating the sector, right? What's going on in that space?
Yeah. So a number of things have happened. One, I think it was about 4 years ago when Ghana bought the integrated, I forgot what they call it, integrated financial transactions policy that began to allow. So initially there were no licenses to support fintechs, but that licensing regime began to allow fintechs to operate. Also allowed interoperability between um, different banks and different financial service providers. This was like the very first step. This was about 6 years ago that enabled fintechs begin to um, play actively in the market. But even as at that, the lowest licenses were very expensive. I think the minimum I've forgotten that could basically just allow like what we call a thrift, we call it susu, a thrift business, um, was like 250,000 CDs. Um, but nevertheless, many startups started being able to play in the center. The government also now created a sandbox because a lot of the problem with in the financial sector is that startups don't understand how to engage with the government. They don't understand how to walk through the regulatory maze, if I may say. So the government created a sandbox, fintechs that were looking to get licensed to actually come and test out their products in a controlled space and thereby learn the processing, learn the methods, and receive guidance as well. I think this helps Ghana massively. Um, I also think that the cryptocurrency blockchain trend or well emergence, while the government didn't like it or were not sure about it, it did bring how about engagement from the government to better understand the emerging financial world, and also now begin to look at how to create regulation to manage it. I mean, there's still very unclear regulation around blockchain, digital currencies in Ghana. But the government has actually launched their own digital currency 2 years ago. And it's not like officially in operations, but it does show that the Ghanaian government is willing to embrace change. They're not sure what's happening, but they're dipping their toes in the water and just watching and learning. You know.
Yeah, it's quite, I remember it's quite a bold move,
Yeah.
but an important one, I think. And as you say, like it's a step in the right direction. Also, it's a signal of the mindset of the government.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your experience in leadership, particularly cross-cultural leadership, and I'd like to ask you about how you've in your career built cohesion and built trust across global teams.
Right. I think my first experience with working with like massively different cultures from mine was in Econet, where we had a management team from Zimbabwe managing our company. So back then, Econet Wireless Nigeria was one of the two companies licensed by the government to operate uh, the GSM business in Nigeria. And we had this big team from Zimbabwe. They were the technical partners managing. And so this, began to expose me to like major cultures other than mine. Um, and I don't know, as Providence would have it, my company got sold and acquired like multiple times to different organizations from different countries. So it was Econet to Vodacom for a short while from South Africa, and then to well, it was Celtel, managed, owned actually at the time by Mo Ibrahim from Sudan, but managed mostly from the Netherlands. So that's a European culture. And then it was, and Celtel also exposed me to other operations of Airtel because by then we were taken into this bigger network across Africa that Celtel owned. So I started actually getting to meet a lot of other nationalities aside from Nigeria or West Africa. And then Celtel was acquired by Zain from Middle East. You know,
Just the bigger and bigger fish
yes,
eating.
yes. And Zain was later sold. Zain Africa was later sold to Airtel, an Indian company. So those transitions help me understand, first of all, different cultures and also different ways of managing from different cultures. I mean, the way Celtel, that had a largely European culture, would manage was totally different from the way Zain, with the Middle Eastern culture, would manage, and also totally different from how Airtel, with the Indian culture, will will manage. And then coming into IBM, so all this while experiencing and absorbing these cultures, I was still working for Airtel Nigeria. But coming into IBM, so IBM got a deal with Airtel, basically transferred their deal or extended their deal from India, the management, IT management deal from India into Africa. And then a number of us got rebadged to IBM. So in 2011, I became an IBM staff. And that year, my role, now transited Nigeria, went across 9 African countries. And that meant that I had people working with me that I was responsible for across 9 African countries, French and English speaking. Um, I'd already loved languages before then, but I now realize the practical importance of language in being able to manage and build trust in your team. I learned practically that all I needed to do to begin to open lower barriers and open doors was greet somebody in their language or be interested in learning the language. Unfortunately, I love languages, so that was easy. Um, and I would now later, by the time, uh, well, I would later now actually get into a role that was Pan-African across 17 African countries. But now my team was based in India. So I had about 25 people working with me in India, managing projects across Africa and in India. Um, this was great because not only was I managing people that I couldn't see, I couldn't, interact with in person, but totally different culture. But I learned one, those basic courtesies that we take for granted work massively in a virtual space. Being able saying thank you, being very free with your praise, with encouragement, being personal where needed, finding out how's your family, how's the child. Those things actually, really, really help a lot in management. In IBM back then, we had what we call save time was a chat. And we basically managed a lot of our work just by being connected and using chats. Long before WhatsApp became like, matured, we had like group chats. We managed incidents, in group chats across multiple countries. And these tools with should I say, the relational tools also helped me manage a lot. Manage well. Then I also understood the how do you explain this? Working with a plan and working with dashboards. So agree a plan that here's what we need to do for this week. I may not be able to control when you log in and when you check out on a daily basis, but we have a set of tasks that we need to achieve. And every day we check in, what's the issue like? How are you getting along? What's done? What's not done? And then we pull all of that into a dashboard that shows like percentage completion. So everybody wants to perform. Everybody wants to look good. We know at some point we're going to have a performance discussion. So, and these are like real hard tools that are showing how well we're doing. So, but I found that really was effective in managing large groups.
It's true. I like those like fundamental aspects of humanity when we go to work, that we honestly want to do a good job and we honestly want to do well, and yes, bring some money home and put bread on the table, but also crucially making the implicit explicit, because I think what's implicit is very culturally biased, but what's explicit and what's shown and shared and put on a dashboard and communicated it kind of transcends those things. Right? I also think that people who have worked in global teams were much better prepared for COVID and the kind of rise of working from home or hybrid work than those that worked in a purely like local team, because we're so used to working with people from the other side of the world, people who speak different languages to us, people that had very different upbringings. And also, like you say, just kind of being curious about people's lives and their backgrounds, and like to your point, what language they speak and what they do at the weekend, and not probing but showing an interest is something that we remember that we're all human beings actually primarily, and then we come to work. Yeah, I really like that. I'm interested in your view. We've got a few minutes left. I'm interested in your view of the future of technology, in particularly in West Africa, particularly in Ghana. So firstly, what's your view of the strategic blind spots in how local firms approach building products and approach building teams, and then how do we change that?
So in Ghana, and I think in Nigeria, product creation, product management has matured significantly because of the startup evolution. But I think a lot of people still go about like finding products or finding problems in the traditional. Well, I had the problem, so I feel everybody would have that problem. And one of the things that I've learned in product creation or product development is the fact that it's not my problem. The fact that it is my problem does not mean it's everybody's problem. There's that phrase, I don't know where it came from. It says, "You are not your user." And so, you're not your user. And so, the need to, really do real proper, user market research, I think is still a big challenge. I mean, it's well talked about and discussed, and many startups do it, but they don't do it really thinking that I want to learn. They do it as I need to tick the box to say I have done some research. So um, the result, and a lot of founders already have what they want to do, so they're just basically doing the research to validate, to validate what they want to do, and this is not how it's supposed to be done. The research itself is supposed to help you, um, yes, validate where rightly so your hypothesis, but also invalidate it and open your eyes to other things and other opportunities that are there that the users really need. So I think this is still a big blind spot when it comes to product management. When it comes to building teams, both in Nigeria and in Ghana, unfortunately, a lot of people still are very individualistic in how they go about their business. Um, One, they feel there's a big risk in bringing somebody else, and they may steal your idea, they may go, but um, at the very early stages, until you've done a lot of work in research, an idea is really worthless. And you do need people who complement your own capabilities to join forces with you, who can actually believe in the vision. And a lot of founders are also not open to share. Um, but I think that's hard to say. Come in, support me, help me, and let's share generously. Um, will actually build trust in team, um, and help a lot of founders. I think so. I think these are the two big blind spots. Still working towards the answer, as we say, when it comes to product research, and then not willing to partner and share with other people when we feel so jealous about our ideas. Yes, I think these are the two big problems in
Wonderful. And I think if I may, the common thread through those things is some bravery.
yeah,
Product
absolutely.
market fit conversations are very, very challenging to a founder who has an idea, who's maybe already built a product, that's done that in the wrong direction. And they're looking to validate their idea rather than offer it up and have people tear their idea apart. There's a book, I've got it in it, called, it's fantastic. It's called The Mum Test.
Ah,
Do you know this book? It's when you say your idea to your mother, and your mother says, "Honey, that's a brilliant idea. The market's going to love it." and then the second, to share generously of your idea, and to execute together as a team with people who have skill sets that complement yours. So, Femi, thanks very much for joining us today. We've got to the top of our 20 minutes, then some, and I wish, I've said this a few times now, I wish that we'd call it Turntable 40s, because I could keep talking to you and keep questioning you about this space. But it's been wonderful. Can people find you on LinkedIn? What's the best way to get in touch?
yes, Olufemi Adewumi. That's my LinkedIn name. If you search for Olufemi Adewumi, look for the one that has MEST, because there are many Olufemi Adewumis, unfortunately.
There's a bunch. Yeah, all bold, brave innovators, we hope. Well, Olufemi, thank you so much for joining us today. I've been Sam Moorhouse, your host. This has been Turntable 20s, and we'll see you next time. Thanks very much, Nick.
Thank you.